Hello, everyone, and welcome to Book Club once again. So, for this month, I chose a very special book for me. Um, 10 years ago, I became a grandmother, and this book my daughter gave to me. Before I knew that I was going to be a grandmother, she gift wrapped it, and I opened it, and it said, Chicken Soup for the Grandma's Soul. And I'm like, what? And my daughter's all excited, open it, open it. I'm like, okay, why am I getting this book? So I open it, and the first thing I see is a sonogram of my unborn grandson. And I'm like, oh my God, I'm going to be a grandmother. I'm too young. Those are the thoughts that came to my head. And I thought, oh, she better not bring that baby to my house. I'm not going to be taking care of it. I had all these thoughts in my head. And that is why I chose this book, because the very first story kind of relates to a little bit of me, of what I thought, but how feelings change after you become a grandmother. I don't know, many of you are probably grandparents already, and or maybe you're going to be a grandparent. This is such a great book for you to read. So I'm going to start with the first chapter, and for the next following book club, I will read another story. There's a lot of nice stories in here. I'm sure you are familiar with chicken soup stories, chicken soup books. There's so many different chicken soups out there that you can read, like Chicken Soup for the Soul. I love that book. It's amazing. So let's start with this one. It's called The Birth of a Grandma. Soon I will be an old white-haired lady into whose lap someone places a baby, saying, "Smile, Grandma." I who myself so recently was photographed on my grandmother's lap. Baby's boredom and bliss. When a child is born, so is a grandmother, for sure. Let's begin. We're not going in there, are we? I asked, appalled. Looking inside the baby store my friend was determined to enter. I'd come a long way to visit, hundreds of miles, and she wanted to shop in a baby store. Quite frankly, I found those kind of stores boring, the way I found most babies boring. I'd never been accused of being enthusiastic over little creatures who couldn't walk, talk, or do anything except scream, make a mess, and demand all of one's attention. Turning on the well worn heel of her running shoe, my friend shot me a steely look. We won't be long, she promised, striding into the store. Unhappily, I trailed after her. She's changed, I thought grumpily, as I stifled a yawn and tottered through the crammed aisles on my high heels. Definitely changed, I thought sourly, as she spent the next 2 hours oohing and ahhing over everything to do with infants until I thought I'd go insane. What can I say in defense of my once glamorous friend, who now smelled of spit up and stumbled tiredly through the store, misty eyed with joy? She'd become a grandmother. That fact was responsible for her gleeful preoccupation with the world of little things, the reason she didn't have time to dye the gray in her hair, the reason she traded in her classic clothing for jogging gear, the reason she didn't seem able to talk about anything except babies, and most particularly one little grandbaby. After helping cram purchases into every nook and cranny of her car, I reminded my friend of a lunch date with our high school girlfriends at a hot new restaurant that featured elegant dining in an atmosphere that catered to people like me, tourists with hard-earned time and money to spend, who wanted to be pampered in a child-free environment. I squeezed into the passenger side of the car, holding a huge teddy bear on my lap, thankful that soon I'd be in a world of my peers where conversation would veer towards spas, salons, and shopping. But I was sadly, pathetically mistaken. No sooner did we get to the restaurant than my friend took out her wallet and proceeded to spread pictures of her grandson over the gleaming table, expecting us to all go ooh ah over the bald-headed type with the toothless smile. Every woman did, including the waitress, but not me. What's the matter? I thought. Depressed? Am I the only woman on the planet who dislikes baby talk? It wasn't that I didn't like babies. I did. I'd born and raised one myself. Lisa had turned into a lovely young woman, intelligent, kind, ambitious. We had a good relationship based on respect, love, and mutual interest. But I had never been what one could call maternal. And what's more, my friend, oh goodness. Sorry about that, I can't open my page. My friend had never been either, I thought, glaring at her over a glass of wine. I couldn't understand what had happened to her. We'd been teenage mothers together. We'd married and grown up with our daughters together as single mothers. We'd struggled in a world where we tried to fit work and relationships and parenting all in one. We'd been the best of friends. What had happened to bring us apart? I could only think of one thing, one word, actually 2 words, grandmother. What was so grand about that? I thought irately. Months later, my daughter called, Mom, guess what? I was filing my nails with one hand and juggling the phone with the other, trying not to smear my facial pack. I'm going to have a baby. The phone slid down my face as visions of gray hair and sweatpants filled my mind, and the sounds of squawking at all hours of the day and night filled my ears. I tasted weariness as I imagined trundling after an infant who needed smelly diapers change while testing formula to feed a hungry, wailing new soul. New soul. I burst into tears. Are you glad or are you mad? Lisa shouted into the phone with trembling fingers. I juggled the receiver and said through a throat suddenly gone dry, I'm not sure. Silently, I tried out the unfamiliar label grandma. When's the due date? I whispered hoarsely. Christmas Day. Christmas in Seattle. I flew over on the 23rd. Lisa met me at the airport, beaming huge. I remembered how that felt. Remembered how wonderful it was. How joyful. How expectant. For the second time since I heard the news, I burst into tears. On December 26th, Bronwyn entered the world and stole my breath, my heart, my soul, my entire identity. Let Grandma hold her, I shouted, almost knocking my poor son-in-law off his feet as I snatched my granddaughter out of his arms. I looked down into her precious angelic face and burst into tears. Over the next few days, I fought like a dragon to hold her, feed her, change her. I shopped in the local supermarket with my hair pulled into an untidy ponytail, dark smudges under my eyes from day-old mascara, sleepless nights, and sentimental weeping. As I sat in the market's deli, rocking Bronwyn in my arms and trying not to get spit up on my jogging suit, I reflected on my new heart, my new eyes, my new senses, and I knew that up until the day she'd come into the world, I had been blind. The miracle of her birth had wrought a miracle in me, one I could not get enough of. Babies, I planned to call my friend to see if she'd be available to go shopping next time I was in town. There were some baby stores I was eager to visit. I hoped she'd bring photos. I couldn't wait to show her mine. Story by Janet Hall Wigler. And that is the story. So when my grandson was born, it was the most beautiful feeling. It did change my whole outlook on being a grandmother. I remember when I said that I hope that my daughter doesn't call me and ask me to take care of that baby. Well, yes, it did happen. She called me and said, Mom, could you please take care of my baby when I go back to work? I don't trust anyone with the baby. And I said, yes, my dear, I'll take care of the baby. So 3 years later, I took care of that baby every day, 8 hours a day. I wasn't working at the time, so I had the time to take care of my grandson. And I remember when my grandson had to go to preschool, I was so heartbroken. And my grandson too, we were both what is the word I'm looking for? We were just missing each other because we were so used to seeing each other every day. And I miss him to this day. I don't see him as often, but I try to see him as much as I can. But it does change your world. I actually have 2 grandbabies. I have a granddaughter as well. My grandson is 10 and my granddaughter is 5. So if you are a grandparent, pick this book up. It's a wonderful book. Or come and see me until next book club and you can hear another story. Until next time.